This interview is brought to you in association with Rabobank.
Hello and welcome to another in our series of Rural Delivery online interviews. I'm Roger Bourne. The Trans-Pacific Partnership Agreement caused fierce debate and protest for some, and was cause for great optimism amongst others in almost equal measure. One of the key people at the centre of this, certainly from the primary sector perspective, as well as ongoing trade talks around the world, is Mike Petersen, who joins me now. Mike, welcome.
Great to be here, Roger.
Now, Mike, you're our Special Agricultural Trade Envoy. You've had this role for 3 years now. Was the TPP the most challenging thing you've had to face in that role?
I think TPP has certainly been one of the most challenging pieces of work that we've had on over the past few years. But I guess all trade agreements are, particularly when it comes to agriculture. Even when we look at the Korean free trade agreement that we completed recently, that was a tough piece of work and has been ongoing for a number of years. And I think looking forward, probably the China upgrade will also be another challenging piece of work. So it's great to get TPP across the line. It has been my major focus in the past 3 years, and we're now looking to see it come into force, which is hopefully going to happen later this year.
We'll carry on talking about the trade agreements in a minute, but I do just want to talk about the last 3 years. It's a very special role you've got. It's got special in the title, for goodness sake. Can you just give us a bit of a flavour about what it is you're there to achieve?
Yes, certainly. It's a role that is effectively an ambassadorial role. It has the title of Special Trade Envoy because a Special Envoy in diplomatic terms actually does open doors right around the world. So I'm appointed by two of our ministers, a Minister of Trade, Todd McClay, and our Minister for Primary Industries, Nathan Guy, to represent the primary sector when it comes to areas of agricultural diplomacy, to support ministers and officials around agricultural trade negotiations, and also to try and encourage greater business relationships between companies here in New Zealand and companies offshore. 5 main sectors: dairy, meat, wool, horticulture and wine, and sometimes forestry and seafood as well. So that's the role. I've been in for 3 years, very rewarding but quite challenging also.
When you talk about it opening doors, can you give us an example of the types of doors you've been walking through and what it's like, what's expected of you when you walk in?
When I'm travelling offshore, and I'll typically go away for a period of about 2 weeks at a time, I'll meet with a range of people from ministers, chief executives of agriculture and trade ministries or ministry of the economy in some countries, right through to stakeholder groups, sector groups and farmers as well. And so I'll be expected to be able to cover a range of topics from New Zealand's priorities around the trade agendas, also to have the tough conversations with farmers on the ground about what increased trade might mean for them. So it's a range of meetings in a formal setting, a range of meetings in an informal setting. And one of the important roles I play is actually trying to get a better understanding about New Zealand and the world of agriculture and food. We're still seen by many countries as being a big agricultural producer in the South Pacific that can produce cheap food, to swamp the world with cheap food and affect markets. And of course, that's simply not the case.
No.
But it takes someone like me to come in there and talk to them about why that's not the case.
You've also got another role, which is to bring a message back to New Zealand about what the world thinks of it and how it's behaving and where opportunity is, etc., etc. When it comes to these trade agreements, and you have been buried in the TPP, what are the misconceptions that you've seen expressed in New Zealand about what they are and why they matter and why we should be in them or shouldn't?
I think there's a general lack of understanding about the benefits of trade, and I put it really simply in saying that we have a population here of 4.6 million people, but we produce enough food for about 40 million people. And so the reality is we're a country the size of Sydney, and we need to export our food products in order for New Zealand to make a living. And so for a country that relies on the world for a living, I think, we often know very little about what actually happens in the world. And so one of the roles I can bring is talk about the trends and the opportunities for New Zealand companies when they go to take their products offshore. And I do that in a number of forums, whether it's in conferences or direct meetings or meetings with boards and companies here in New Zealand at any time of the year.
If you could change our understanding of trade deals in just one way? Is there one thing that you'd like to change about how we view these deals as a society, not necessarily as a primary sector?
I'd like to reinforce the fact that the negotiators that are out there day in, day out, trying to negotiate better trade and market access deals for New Zealand are absolutely working in the best interests of New Zealand. And I see all of the criticism of ministers and officials that are doing the hard yards on the world stage. And that's really one perception I'd like people to change, because none of these people are working against the interests of New Zealand. So that would be a message to get across to the populace, which would be great. Okay.
Now, TPP is ostensibly over the line. What's your focus now, I imagine, going back to China?
Well, China's certainly on the agenda as far as an upgrade to the free trade agreement that we signed in 2008 to 2009. Look, I think just we need to be cautious about TPP. It's not over the line yet. The negotiated text has been agreed, but now it has to be ratified by each country. And so all of the 12 member countries have to go through their own process of ratification, and that is going to take a year or 18 months further until we think we can get all of those countries lined up. It's not until then that the actual agreement will come into force. But there are a whole lot of priority markets that we're still looking to try and form new trade agreements with, and one of the priorities for this year clearly is Europe, and we've been spending quite a bit of time with the Europeans trying to talk about the benefits for both countries to try and secure an agreement in that space.
You've said that these trade agreements are often actually more about opening minds than actually opening markets. Can you just talk us through what your thinking is there?
In every trade agreement that we have progressed since the Uruguay round back in the 80s, we've always completed some modelling to try and understand just what the benefits for New Zealand would be. And in every single case, after those trade agreements have been completed, the modelling has always been well exceeded by actual trade. And so this is something that I have seen on every occasion, and I think we'll have exactly the same thing happen with TPP. The modelling will be far less than the actual trade that happens afterwards. And this is just purely because once you get a trade agreement between either two countries in a bilateral sense, or in the case of TPP, between 12 countries, then exporters look much more openly to those countries to look at how they can integrate their value chains and how they can actually do business with the populations within those countries. So it's just a fact that trade agreements often aren't the biggest benefit is often not the actual tariff benefits that accrue on day one, but it's the ongoing trade and relationships that build over time.
Given the stated benefits of TPP, be they the enforced benefits or the longer-term benefits that you're talking about here, and the fact that it's not signed, sealed and delivered, is there a plan B if it doesn't quite get there?
No, there's not a plan B, and we are looking for TPP to be ratified by all of the countries that are involved. There's a lot of debate at the moment about what the American political election might mean for TPP. But look, I would just say let's get the politics out of the way first, because I'm convinced that the American people and the American business groups will see the benefits of integrating their industries into the Asia-Pacific region. I just can't believe that America would simply look at the opportunity to look to the Asia-Pacific for more business and turn it down. So let's get the politics out of the way. I'm confident that the US will see the benefits, and so that's why we're only sticking with Plan A.
One of the abilities you have in your role is to get the politics out of the way and have real conversations, I guess, New Zealand farmer to international farmers. What are some of the things that you're hearing about those perceptions of New Zealand, and what does it make you think that we should perhaps do differently if we want to change the way people think about us, particularly in Europe?
There's a perception around the world that New Zealand has a very cheap cost of production, and that we have very few regulations for farming here in New Zealand, and that it's just an easy place to do business and to sell cheap products on the world markets. And of course, That's just simply not the case. We have no interest in selling cheap products. We have regulatory systems that are very strong, and in fact, in the area of environmental regulatory space, they're actually very, very tough rules that we're now asking farmers to abide to. So, actually reinforcing just how important it is for New Zealand farmers to have these sort of systems in place is a big part of what I do. I've been calling in recent times for the need for a primary sector story, a new primary sector story that actually brings the various parts of what we're doing in our production systems together into one place to provide some accreditation to sit behind the products that we take to the world. And I think that's something we could do relatively easily. The bits are in place, but we just need to coordinate that and bring it together for the benefit of the primary sector as a whole.
Could you use some help? Are there enough senior people from New Zealand's agribusiness sector, boards, etc.? Are they the people who you think could carry this message into the marketplace? Does it need to accompany the product to the consumer level? How would you like to see that play out?
I think that certainly a number of people are agreeing with the concept. The question that keeps coming up is who's going to provide the leadership. And so I want the primary sector to take this and to drive it. I don't think we need something devised for us by someone else. We don't need it devised by the government for us as a primary sector. What we need is a primary sector to understand how this can fit with the branding and promotional programs that go overseas from commercial companies. And so this is not about stopping individual companies and their ability to develop and promote their own brands and products, but I think it can be something that provides a really good story of the heritage and the craftsmanship that is used in the production of our primary sector goods before they hit the world market. I think it's an enabler that the commercial sector can use as a part of their story when they take their products to the world.
Brilliant. Look, Mike, thank you very much for your time. I have to leave it there, let you get back to the farm. Appreciate your time. Looking forward to continuing to follow you on Twitter. Always find it hugely informative, and we will keep in touch.
Thanks, Roger. Great to talk.
This interview was brought to you in association with Rabobank.